This episode of RPMMORadio is brought to you by all our amazing and generous Patreon donors. Visit us at patreon.com/RPMMORadio to help support the show. It's also brought to you by...
Well, hello there. It's me, Dardar. I am sorry to take you away from your show, but do you know about House Bill 420? Yes, it's before the politicians even now. This one asks you that you call them to pass it. What is HB 420, you ask? I am glad you asked that. It is to legalize the recreational use of catnip. Many say that we want only to legalize catnip for recreational highs, and this one tells you that that is not true at all. Did you know catnip has other medical uses? Catnip in tea has been proven to help insomnia, so you can, get in a good nightly catnap. I love catnaps. It can also help with anxiety and migraines and respiratory infections and the swine flu. I hate that one. I had it 5 times last year. Fever and hives, and best of all, the one I hate the most, the worms. I hate that one even more because at least I can rub my butt on the carpet and it helps a little bit, but the catnip is better. So, it's even good for indigestion, colic, cramping, and flatulence. Yeah. So, some people even rub it on their skin to help with arthritis or hemorrhoids to relieve swelling. It's amazing. It can do so many things. But I'd use actually some pair of gloves on that last one because you don't know where that's been. And of course, it makes us Khajiit high as a kite and giggle at the wall and getting the munchies. But all that other stuff's like super important too. So call your representative guy today and tell them yes on HB 420 and more yes on the catnip.
You're listening to RPMMORadio.
Does internet porn know you're cheating on it?
Where entertainment and roleplay in MMORPGs have little hybrid mutant babies.
Make a note of this. Dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow, dishonor on your whole family.
And now, here's your hosts, Ashen Phoenix, Civ, Jazz, Strafe, and Yunfe.
Everybody off. We need to go on a quick adventure.
Hello there, role players, and welcome to RPMMORadio, our 85th episode, Inspiration or Plagiarism. Having that I've copied everything in my entire life, I know the difference, including that one time when I asked somebody out and I just used everything from an old 80s movie with a guy in the bushes whispering what to say to me.
That's called class, bro.
That is called class. I was very nervous, but Sib said yes.
Hey, man.
I didn't realize that we were talking about me.
What?
I didn't.
There was no other girls before you.
That's a lie.
They were all just practice until I got to the real big leagues.
Nicely done.
Right? That's
Very
smooth,
nicely
huh?
done.
Yeah, also ripped off from a 90s movie. Anyway.
It's because I made him a sandwich earlier.
Yeah, she did make me a sandwich. A hamburger sandwich. So
Dang, that's true love right there.
It
Hamburger
is, right?
sandwich. I'm a little jealous, dude.
Yeah, it had cheese and mayo. We didn't have any tomatoes and stuff.
No, we actually do have tomatoes. You just didn't look hard enough. A whole bag of tomatoes.
There's the rub. I knew it was coming at some point.
So I got a half-ass sandwich, but you know what? I'll take a half-ass instead of no ass any day.
You're going to get it thrown at you is what's going to happen.
Well, appreciate everybody tuning in. We do it every 3 days out of the month, except for the last weekend, which will actually be next weekend. Also, hello again. For whatever reason, another episode that lands on 420. I don't know how that happened. It seems like 2 years in a row. I'm pretty sure I made the same jokes last year, but, weed.
You're so old.
Something cool. I don't. It's almost. It's there. The dispensaries around here in Oklahoma. We passed it this last election, and they are. Speaking of weeds, they're popping up like them. They are everywhere.
They're everywhere.
All of a sudden, every old and abandoned gas station in the state has turned into a weed dispensary.
I know, right? It's like, wow.
It's crazy. But I'm getting my licenses in the mail, so I should be having...
If that Fed gets their luxury tax, I mean, hey, what do they care?
Yeah, that reminds me, I need to go apply for that stupid thing here in Iowa. They don't have dispensaries here. You have to apply and get a license and all this other stuff, but it's doable.
Ours is still medical. And
Yes,
I use
ours is still medical.
I use
But
air quotes.
you can't grow it, buy it, or sell it.
Oh, actually, what was ours? You can have, I think, 6 plants of your own to grow as long as you have the license. You can.
They
grow
don't let
your
us
own.
do that here in Iowa. You can't. You can't do any of those things unless it's a dispensary that's controlled by the state.
You mean buckle of the Bible Belt, ultra conservative Oklahoma is more liberal weed laws than wherever the fuck it is you live.
I have to say too, the names of the shops here are pretty
great.
interesting. Like the Treehouse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why would you name a dispensary that? But
I like the one in what's that? Last Man Standing with Tim Allen. His dad's name was Bud, so he opened up a weed shop called Bud's Buds.
Bud's Buds.
Oh my gosh,
that one's pretty good.
I love that one.
You guys and the wacky tobacco.
Oh, which is funny because I've never smoked anything in my life in the history of ever, not even a cigarette. Because when I was a very wee baby, I had a lot of allergies, and they told me when that wee baby that if you ever smoke, your throat was going to close up so tight you'll probably die and suffocate.
No, I'm just
horrific for a 2-year-old, but very effective in keeping the smoking away.
I'm just going to plead the fifth. Okay, I didn't inhale.
Yeah.
I just get this mental image of Sibs in the 80s listening to Smoking in the Boys' Room, like hiding in the girl's stall, looking around real paranoid, like, I don't know why.
It was under the bleachers, Steffe.
It's worse.
Tiny bag of Doritos nearby.
It was Cheetos.
Oh, man, that's not living the stereotype.
That was my munchie of choice.
Man, got the munchies.
I tried it several times and was allergic. And
the more you know.
What a shot.
I tried it in early college, gave me a massive headache. I said never again. And I haven't gone back.
Yeah. I guess my body doesn't do anything small because when I did it, I wanted brats. That's all. I just wanted brats all day.
She went full on German.
She did, yeah.
She was
goose. Get the brats and sauerkraut, yeah.
The police caught her goose stepping down the street and taking over her neighbor's backyard by force.
I need the brats in my life. I need them now.
I annexed this I annexed this pool in the name of the mighty Yunfe Empire.
I must have not one bratwurst. I must have all the bratwurst.
Let's go to der Wiener Schnitzel and das Frankenfurter.
Schnell. Mark, schnell.
So,
all right, I'm done with that.
Anyway, RPMMORadio.com. You can go there. .com/Discord to join our Discord server. Yeah, we're still on the intro.
Okay. No, I was trying to get it to come up on my computer, and it's not bringing up the show on Twitch for some weird reason.
Oh, I'm sure it's there. I don't know.
Are you
it's
sure?
There for me, but there's one viewer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which is probably you.
No, I know there's more because I can see who's in the in the chat.
See, and
she sees you.
You never know. It's always hard to say because some of these things are not always very accurate. And it is funny. I've always noticed from one week to the other week you have like a ton of people, and the next week it's like your grandma in the background waving at you like I'm here, dear, and nobody else. But it's just one of those, And it's apparently it's Easter weekend or something. I guess.
Oh yeah.
Do family stuff.
It is the Easter, yes.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Okay, so
that time of year when bunnies lay eggs.
Mm-hmm. Let's celebrate the rebirth and resurrection of Jesus. How should we do that? I don't know. I'm thinking rabbits and chocolate eggs. Oh, you know what? Makes sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh.
I've never understood the connection. Although I
didn't either, but I really do love Cadbury eggs. So,
I gotta say I love.
Ooh, do you like the originals? Please say it's not the original.
Oh, the snot-filled ones. Yeah, I like the caramel ones. I can eat the caramel ones, but I
can only eat like one because it's like overkill.
Right.
Well, yeah, they're super rich.
And it's actually imitation snot is actually what it's made out of.
And that stuff, when I was in my early childhood with my flaring ADD, was like, let me think. It was like high octane speed.
Oh, I
bet. If I could have a Cadbury Egg Mom, she'd give me one, I would just bounce all over the place.
And then she'd be like, "Oh, that's right. That's why I don't give you those." Yeah.
She always forgot.
But yeah, everybody, thank you for tuning in. RPMMORadio, or was it twitch.tv/RPMMORadio. Go over there and follow and subscribe, just like finally, since it updated 14 days ago, Lord Goats did. And of course, the man flashing 10, who we actually got last time, but I'm going to repeat it because we appreciate everybody that follows and sticks around with us for whatever god-awful reason. So, let's see. Anybody, let's see, who's we doing role play? I know I've still been in my funk. Strafe, you've been playing Fallout, so you're out. Yunfei,
I have, but I do have...
No, Yunfei, she's Yunfei. She's been taking care of Rahanar, so of course she hasn't had. Sib's I don't know where she's at. Jazz,
the gym,
Jazz, I'm going to guess you probably had something. I mean, you're really...
Yeah.
Huh.
Woo! Jazz!
Yeah. Well, I guess
Jazz!
by process of elimination...
I tried to break it for you, Jazz. It wasn't happening.
Yeah, I know.
No,
Sorry. He
shut that down quick.
I got it.
So, Jazz, what did you do in your roleplay this week? And do be descriptive and not shy. Just, this is a safe place, and you can tell us anything you want.
Oh, how nice.
This might get interesting.
Be
Tell me
careful
more.
saying that.
Anything.
He's not playing. He's not playing,
Let's
Jazz.
see.
I want to hear all the down and dirty. Yeah,
I didn't get a chance to really spend much time on Ciel. I did get to attend one function with her. And I know Tuesday we had poetry, and I was on Kia for that, but it was... it obviously just lasted for that time period, and there was no real development or anything. So
just people plagiarizing poems.
What?
Are you sure there was no real development?
Well, I mean, you and I do, but that's largely waiting. So
okay, okay, go ahead.
they are going to go on a trip together to start the process. We're going to kickstart the storyline we've been working on, which is good. I've been looking forward to that, so that'll be nice. Mm-hmm. We did some of the what would you call it, groundwork for that Tuesday night.
You pre-gaming it.
Pre-gaming it, yeah.
A little foreplay, maybe.
No foreplay. They're uncle and
oh, not that.
Yeah.
That's pretty gross.
I'm talking about just like roleplay foreplay. Like you're just getting ready to get into the good stuff. Yeah.
You don't even know what foreplay is.
And moose.
Oh, dang.
I love you, Ashley.
Oh, burn.
That was a cold cut to the heart. That was
weird.
Would you like some salve?
Ashton, if you need a place to crash tonight, dude, come on over, dude. That's cold blood.
I don't get it.
He didn't hear it, I don't think. Anyway, let's move on with the show. It's got the show to listen to.
Most of the roleplay that I did this week was in Tor, establishing the guild that I have there. And yesterday was I got to work with some of the apprentices that my character has, teaching them some battle techniques and stuff, which was fun.
Yeah.
But that's really about it.
Man.
She did get, we have some old characters kind of wandering their way back because I'm in game. So people that were involved in the storyline have come by.
Yeah.
A character called Demorne saw me on and made a drop by. And
did you say Des Moines, like Iowa?
Is he from Iowa?
No, Des Moines.
Oh, okay.
Des Moines.
I heard Des Moines too.
I heard Des Moines as well.
Des Moines. Des Moines is her previous handler, and a lot of the storyline that we had them at odds. Oops. And then at the end of the storyline, they kind of worked together to kill a shared enemy. But then after she was dead, then they went back to being enemies again. So he showed up and was like, "I'm watching you," kind of a thing.
Now you can be frenemies.
Yeah, so they're frenemies. That's a very good way to put it. So she was just like, "Stop it! You're supposed to be dead. Can't you die? Do you need me to kill you right way?"
It's like that stereotypical villain to the hero. How many times do I have to kill you?
Yes, exactly. She's just like, "You were dead." No, apparently not.
This parrot is no more. It has ceased to be.
So it was a funny moment, and the only place to roleplay in Tor now is Fleet, which is kind of like Grifton. It's a mixed bag of idiots,
or if you know
players,
or if
trolls,
you know
and actual role players as well as ERPers.
Yeah, I will say though, because I've been at least playing through the storyline. I tried it with the what's the fucking Inquisitor, Sith Inquisitor. God, that's a terrible story. That really is. I see why people say that's the weakest of all the stories.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, so I started doing the Bounty Hunter. Now, that one's a lot of fun, and also my guy looks awesome. So I've been playing through with that, but it's amazing the number of, especially on like Droman Cost and the starting places, the number of like RP guild was advertisements. Yeah, that's the word. Compared to just like regular guilds, like it's like a 4 to 5, or what? How would you say that? 4 to 5 ratio, like 4 out of 5.
Yeah,
are RP guilds.
Yeah, but they apparently only roleplay in private because they are not anywhere.
Well, have you seen Fleet? Can you blame them?
Actually, I can. It's actually not bad. I've run into now 4 different role players there.
Well, that's good.
That were interesting.
So of the other 50 around those 4, so you're at
about... you should see my ignore list. It's impressive. I don't think I'm hearing most of them.
I have no doubt.
I had a guy that was jumping up and down on the table like they all do, because trolls are all the same brain. They lack the capacity to be anything else.
Or they're just trolling you guys because they think you're nerds. I mean, that's honestly...
I don't care. He's still a pencil dick tiny brain. I don't...
I'm not debating that. I'm just telling you.
Don't insult pencil dicks by giving them that much.
So, he was dancing on the table. We were ignoring him, of course. And I got a tell from somebody else saying that the guy dancing on my table wanted to know if I was ignoring him. We had somebody who I didn't have on ignore. And I said, 1, this is a violation of TOS. I wouldn't do that again. And 2, yes, he's an idiot. Thank you. Goodbye. And I put him on ignore too. So, it's the same thing.
Add to the list, baby.
Add to the list. But it was still nice because there are still role players there. They are still trying. A lot of it's a pickup thing, just like in Riften.
Right.
But... you have your serious role players, and it's been very interesting. So I've got to say, in this lull of time,
it's scratching that itch.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to find RP and random RP at that.
Mm-hmm.
Since things have gotten so quiet in ESO.
Oh yeah. What was that? What was that?
Somebody sneezed.
Oh, okay.
Bless you.
Wasn't me.
Oh,
that was a cough. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Oh, cough.
Bless you, my child.
Cough due to cold.
The day of our Lord's resurrection.
That's tomorrow, but thank you.
Well, actually, I'm thinking
of shows how much you know. Even I knew that.
It's kind of a floating holiday, bud.
It really is.
Yeah. Well, completely unrelated. How about that Notre Dame, huh? Boy, did that suck.
That did suck.
Although
they saved all the art and and
even where they were really worried about the internal structure when that tower collapsed, and they got in there after the fire was out, and it's good.
I did get some really interesting news about the Notre Dame.
What's that?
You might find interesting. You might not. I'm a granola crunchy person, so it really was cool for me.
Granola crunchy person. I've never heard that.
At least you said it, not us, I guess. Even though I've never heard that before.
Really, it's
you know what I mean.
I love it.
Well, it's not new.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's been a push, especially in France, for certain places to put bees. And
did you say bees?
A lot of bees.
Okay,
beehives.
Sure. All right, gotcha.
Like some of the really old buildings in France and Rome, a lot of these places are doing it because obviously these places are up, really high up, and it makes sense. Well, they had some within the roof.
Oh, really?
Of the Notre Dame some hives placed for bees.
It was the bees.
And they assumed when the roof went up that the bees were dead. No, because bees do not die from smoke inhalation.
Nope.
They just get sleepy.
They fall asleep.
Yeah, they just go to sleep. And they protect the queen, and they gorge themselves on honey so they can go quite a while without eating or anything while they sleep. And when they found the hives, they were alive.
Huh. That's actually kind of
cool.
Pretty
They
cool.
didn't lose any of the hive, and it's a large hive, so it's really cool.
Well,
I thought that was a really nice, positive thing.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good stories from that. You know, the tower collapsing in on it. They figured that would destroy it, but the old cross was there. They managed to save, you know, whether it is or not, but the piece of the original cross that he was supposed to be on, the crown of thorns that they found at year 500. They got those out, and so I mean I heard about all that, and then bees. That's actually kind of cool.
I did read one thing that was exalting the power of God because the gold cross was still standing.
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw that one where the guy's like, or gold melts at a higher temperature than everything else.
You know, one of the coolest things, you know, when that tower, that spire was on fire and it was almost like glowing. You know what that was? That thing is coated in a layer of lead. And the fire got so hot up in those upper rafters. And because they actually call part of that spire, they call it the forest, because apparently it took almost like 50 separate forests being torn down and built into wood to build that thing. They actually called it the forest. They inspected that thing 3 times a day because it was such a fire hazard. So apparently they needed to up that to, you know, maybe 4 or 5, but beyond that. But it got so hot that glowing wasn't it was the molten lead just sloughing off of that thing from the heat.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. But you know,
it melted the lead, but it didn't melt. It wasn't hot enough to melt gold, so the gold and all that stuff was still there, which is really cool. It's not as much of a miracle as it is just science, but it was still cool. That a lot of the gold covered stuff.
Yeah, it insulated it in a way.
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff that was covered in gold is still covered in gold and is fine even after the fire.
I'd actually heard too that like the renovations they had the renovations in order. I think it was like 160 million. And these renovations on that building were supposed to take it was the next 30 years. This was under renovation. And now, of course, those evil billionaires donating up. So far, last I heard, it was $630 million to
they've been getting lots of donations.
I'm sure it's more than that by now. But can you imagine? So if a small renovation like that was going to take 30 years, we're all going to be dead by the time they get this thing rebuilt. There's not going to be anyone left to appreciate it. I mean, which is good. It needs to be done. It's 800. Think of it like this. That thing is, our country is 1/3 the age of that single building.
Yeah. It's almost 2,000 years old.
Yeah.
Or 1,000 years old, excuse me.
850, yeah. So, it's getting up there.
Pushing 1,000,
I mean,
which is really cool.
You know, I think Yoda said it best, you know, when 900 years old you reach, look as good you're not.
You know, I got something completely funny. This is not funny, but I find dark humor in things. I just way
that's why we have you on the show.
I know. So when I watched that, of course, it's horrible. It's completely horrible. But then part of me was like, well, so much Hunchback live action from Disney.
We finally got that Hunchback bastard.
Oh, and they did say that that game Assassin's Creed
Unity. Yeah, I was just going to say that.
That the scans that they did of that will help.
Yeah, completely rebuild it.
Yep.
Yeah.
As it was. Yeah, cool. That's who would have thought something they did for a video game that they didn't do on their own, but all that data is just sitting on a computer somewhere now.
Who would have thunk it?
Yeah, they'll be able to completely redo everything almost down to the inch of the way it was originally.
Yeah, because they have those digital scans of it. That's awesome.
And which, by the way, right now, because of that, you can get Assassin's Creed Unity for free from Ubisoft. If you want it, you just have to go over there and grab it for, I think it's got another week and a half or so.
Yeah, I'm going to
go. So Roleplay.
Right. So, Roleplay. So what about you, Stefan? What'd you have? Now that we got off way on a tangent.
Okay. Trath left the poetry hour fairly early. He was quite excited. And he was sad that Voli was staying at a ranch for the duration, but still, progress must be made. So he prepped the artifact for travel packed the necessary agents, made sure to double write an invitation to his niece to be there in the morning, and saddled his horse for the morning's excursion. It would be a short trip to the Way Shrine, but it should prove useful. All the things were ready, all the runes in place. He could not wait to see what happened when he activated the artifact. The end!
Nice.
That and poetry was good. We had the same people doing the same things. However, we started small, and actually the place filled up.
That's good.
Yeah.
And that's always a surprise. I'm always thinking people are going to lose interest, and then they don't. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Good.
Anyhow, that's it. That's the start of it.
The end.
The end.
So, Sib, Yunfei, anything?
I'm still in Fallout.
Just
but I'm
nuking
still
people.
loving it. I actually played a couple days with Indigo, and I posted some pictures in general.
She nuked some
about
folks.
Mm-hmm.
No. Last night, Indigo nuked some folks, which was awesome.
Finally got his first nuking.
Yes.
did.
So it was fun. But yep, that's about all I've been up to. Damn you, Fallout.
Well,
I love you.
somewhere Todd Howard's like, thank God there's at least one.
Hey, I'm loving it too, man. And
Hey,
I know.
they need to give me some merchandise, and I will totally support them.
Merchandising.
Yeah, if Todd Howard, if you're listening, I'm a huge Fallout fan.
He is.
Just saying.
I'm sure he's in his mansion counting on his bed of $100 bills. Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad I tuned into this podcast on Twitch. How about you, Uni?
I've been mostly playing the final update for Enter the Gungeon. And I actually just unlocked the new character today.
Welcome
Nice.
to the
Very nice.
dungeon. You got what
Sounds
it
like a
takes.
cool anime. Gungeon.
It's a really fun game.
Take them to the fungeon, because it's like a dungeon, but it's fun.
Oh, Gungeon.
I know, but that's not the Wreck-It Ralph quote, so.
Oh,
That giant poster you have hanging on your walls. I thought you would have got the reference.
I've only seen it like twice,
So
Dang.
why?
which is odd for me because when I like a movie, the autism kicks in and I'll just watch it like forever. Like I've seen Deadpool, I think 27 times now.
Or, for example,
Goodness
how many times
gracious.
have you watched Umbrella Academy?
I watched Umbrella Academy all the way through, and then I realized I liked it so much I watched it all the way through again.
Yep.
That's some dedication right there, folks.
That's some love. Hey, and it was a damn good show. I will give her that. If you're gonna binge watch something twice in a row, that's a good one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for me, I've been in my funk, but I do at least have an old story, second one from my old Eternal Drifter thing with Xanis back in EverQuest. So I'll go ahead and just read that. It's like a page and a half, so bear with me. If you don't like it, fast forward about 5 minutes, and if you do, stay here. So, Eternal Drifter, Broken Jewel. It would go down in history as one of the worst summer droughts since the rending shattered the world. The kind of heat that would crack the skin and dry the throat just for breathing. Many dusty trails were created during this time, as the brush was easily broken and straighter paths made, which was all for the better, as the less time someone traveled during the day, the better their fortune. Xanis Sulegna, a wandering monk, was traveling on just such a dust-choked trail. Hood pulled over to keep his long, tear-dull ears from burning and the sun out of his sensitive eyes as he watched his feet mile after mile, the little clouds of dust that they created, the only other movement he saw for hours, and the shuffling of his feet the only sound. That is until a soft whimper from just off the trail in a ditch caught his ear. Feet halting, he stopped to listen. It would not be entirely impossible he had started to just hear things, but no, there it was again, a stifled cry. Making his way towards the sound, he saw a girl. She was young, maybe 10 or so. He's never really good with human children's ages. They all just kind of looked the same, really. Something about her, though, was not right. Xanis looked up and down the trail and saw nothing save for what looked like hours of old tracks. Looking back, he finally caught what was unnatural about her. Whimpering as she was, she didn't move. She just sat there with her legs splayed out and under her, with her head bent down, staring at a fixed point of nothing. Her arms hung limply at her sides, not in her lap, or over the dusty and tear-streaked face. In one hand, she clutched a little brown rag doll with a tuft of floppy hair on the top and big black button eyes by the doll's arms. He stepped closer. Nothing. And closer still. Still nothing. Crouching in front of her, she didn't even seem to register his existence. "Are you okay?" he asked carefully. Nothing. Seeing her closer, her lips were cracked and bleeding. There was no telling how long she'd been out here. His fingers went to pull back some hair from her face to see more of it. That was more than she could take, apparently, as the very next moment she was screaming at the top of her lungs and flailing. Backing away, she stopped and went limp once more. Uncorking the water skin and dabbing it onto a rag, he put it to her lips. Nothing at first, and then she began to take the water in, re-wetting the rag again and again until finally she reached out on her own for the water skin and began to drink. Her dirty black hair set back from her face to reveal a rather nasty bruise over her right eye. As she drank, she met his eyes, and glittering like two almond-shaped gemstones in the hot sun, he smiled at her, and she smiled back. It was 10 miles down the road that they caught up to the travelers whose cart and feet had left the tracks. They had set up camp for the night, big overhangs to block out what remained of the sun jutting from the cart. The pair of them walked up to the camp, Xanis holding the little girl's hand. It had been the only way to get her to walk with him. He tried just having her follow, but she'd only stand there. Taking her hand and starting her walking and letting go also didn't work. It had to be this, in her hands, or nothing at all. In her other hand, of course, was the floppy brown rag doll dangling next to her leg. The travelers looked up when a rather plump and hook-nosed woman with beady eyes came from the cooking pot brandishing a large wooden spoon. "What's all this now?" She stopped before the monk and the lost girl, 3 burly men flanking her on either side and a bit behind. They looked all to be related. No amount of ugly gathered in one place was that coincidental. From under his hood, Xanis asked, "Pardon me, but I found this child on the road. Do you happen to see anyone that might have lost her?" The little girl was staring at the blank spot of nothing before her feet as the hook-nosed woman replied in a haughty tone, "Jewel? What'd you bring her back here for, eh? Look at us. It took us an hour to get her to stop following us here, and you go bringing her back. Go on, get now." She waved a large spoon at them and with her pudgy hand. "You left her out here in this drought." His voice was calm, but a glowing ember began to burn in the monk's chest. "Of course we did. She's worthless. Touched in the head. Can't do nothing for herself. Just takes up space, eats our food, and drinks our water. Regret the day I took her in, I does." That was as good as a death sentence, ma'am. "What do I care, eh? Take a look at her for a year now, and ain't no one else want her. Better off dead she is. Never know where she is half the times anyway. Just stares off into space. Always having to hold someone's hand to get her to walk or grab an old wagon." The spoon brandished before him like a cudgel. "Now shove off and take her with you if you care so much." The long spoon swung suddenly at the girl's head. Xanis, taken off guard by the random attack, was too late to stop the spoon from connecting to the girl's other eye. Only it didn't connect. Jewel, staring at her spot of nothing, had grabbed the spoon and pulled it free, the fat woman's hands whizzing by the girl's face empty-handed. Everyone blinked in surprise, even Xanis. The others blinked again, as Xana's hood had slipped when he had made to go for the spoon. Light purple skin and long tear-doll ears framed by long white hair, all centered around two vibrantly violet eyes, looked back at them. The woman screamed. Two of the large sons scrambled back with her. One tried to come forward, arm raised in a meaty-fisted punch. He landed hard on his back after a single kick to the face toppled him. The three others were running and now appeared far off in the distance. Xanis looked down at his new ward and sighed. She was looking back at him, or more specifically, his leg, with her bright almond-colored eyes. All right, then. Let's get what water of theirs we can carry and go. I guess we're in this together now, Jewel. And that's the end.
Nice.
Oldie but a goodie. Well, oldie.
That is a good one.
I was actually entertaining the idea of reading my old bits and pieces of journals, backstory for.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, it'd be a project, but it's actually not. I've actually had the same idea. I've been, of course, I've been plugging away at my computer in a Starbucks so that other people could see me writing. No, I don't do that because I'm not a douchebag. But by the way, yes, Jazz Scrivener is an awesome writing program.
You like it?
Good.
Yes.
That is coming very handy with all the little notes and locations. And
yes.
It's very, very good. So
I think it's a great idea, but dude, I don't know if I want to dig up all Ren stuff. I have it, but that's some dark stuff.
Well, it is dark, but I have a lot of background that I wrote for Kiriv that I would really love to read. That build her character, and then I can start reading her journals. And I think I don't know if people would like it or not, but I would enjoy doing it.
Well,
so.
And I like I said, I've been writing an original thing. It's Xanis, and I'll go into it later. I'll actually probably do it. But one of the things, because we've done this for so long now, is when I get it done, I was actually thinking of doing it just like we did those audiobook stories back 2 Halloweens ago.
Yeah.
Doing all that and reading it, and then upload it to YouTube. Along with the story. I mean, just like you, Jazz, with your journals, if you did that, you could just make a little YouTube channel for your stuff and record yourself and put it up. It would be it'd be nothing at all.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's a pretty good one.
I mean, what's the worst that happens? Nobody listens to it, but as long as you
had a good
time doing it.
I did. I had a great time doing it.
Yeah. So no, it's definitely something I've thought of. It's a lot of fun. I will say it's a lot of fun to do that stuff, but.
Me too, but most of the old stories that I have are about as long as the one that I sent you.
Yes. Well, that's the thing right now. The one I'm writing, it's the longest. It's getting pretty long. I think it's somewhere around 4,000 words now, which for me, I do short stories, but when I say short stories, I mean like it's a page and a half, 2 pages at the most. So this is a long one for me. It
is a good idea. Thing. That stuff is dark though that I wrote. I don't know. But hey, I might give it a try if I don't have anything going on next week.
Yeah, give it a shot. It can't hurt. So, all right. So now on to the main topic. This one's kind of, it came up just mostly out of just seeing. I think it was something we had said on the show once, or it's role playing for as long as we do. The difference between getting inspiration from something and then just plagiarizing it, which.
Good point.
Is a fine line sometimes. But something and it stuck with me, so I looked it up, and there's actually several quotes on it. Oddly enough, all saying the same thing, plagiarizing each other, but at least saying it in a different way. It's not really the case, but something I think it was my Latin teacher had said, even, which is strange because you think it would be my literary teacher that would have told me this, but that the Romans had already said, like, every idea has already been thunk up. It's already been done. It's already been created. So one of the
first things they teach you in art school, too, is there's nothing new under the sun.
You can
Ecclesiastes 1:9.
That's Ecclesiastes. Exactly. I was about to say that.
And I actually have that on here. The Bible beat everybody to it by, I don't know, a few thousand years. But what has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun.
Under the sun.
Ecclesiastes 1:9, which is kind of funny to hear something so negative from the Bible. I mean, outside of the, death.
Solomon had an interesting life.
The constant people making the same mistakes and getting brutally murdered for it. On second thought, no, it's pretty appropriate. But one of the favorite ones I came across was from Mark Twain, and he said, "There's no such thing as a new idea. It is impossible. We simply take a lot of old ideas and put them into a sort of mental kaleidoscope. We give them a turn, and they make up new and curious combinations. We keep on turning and making new combinations indefinitely. But they are all the same old pieces of colored glass that have been used throughout all the ages." Mark Twain. Pretty spot on, really, especially when you get into roleplay, as long as we have. A lot of the ideas do seem to repeat themselves.
You start to see the same stories.
Yep.
Like, for example, people getting kidnapped every Tuesday.
Oh, please no. Please no.
I am Super Saiyan. Oh, I've been kidnapped. Someone come and save me. So, and the other one too is this was from I'm gonna probably I think it's on Andrea or Andre. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. Lord. She's an American writer, feminist, womanist, librarian, and a civil rights activist back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And she said there are no new ideas. There are only new ways of making them felt. And that one I actually liked a lot because that's really
that one's a good one.
Yeah, and that's really where it all comes down to, is when we're doing our characters and these stories, it's if we can get someone to feel something in the story we're telling in RP to others as well as ourselves.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, I just had to quietly burp into the microphone.
Nice.
I give you a
Next time, let it rip. No, he gets a 0. It was quiet.
No. He gets a 5.6 for stealth because I didn't know he did it either.
Oh.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't hear anything, so
it
it's a
came
big
out
sad
like
goose
the
egg for me.
whisper of a fault. So is that true? I mean, is there anything really new? Is there any new ideas that anyone can come up with? I know there's new technology, but funny enough, a lot of the technology we have actually comes from other people's ideas. Like
there's we covered this in an episode past.
Mm-hmm.
Great artists copy each other.
Yeah, we did. I remember
even our
that.
characters, like even my character, like let's go back to Rengots. He's an amalgamation of like 3 different bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I took the elements I needed and I just kind of tried to make my own character out of it using some of those traits. As opposed to, I'm just going to be Artemis and Trary from the Drizzt books and be this bad to the bone dude that feels nothing and he's the ultimate assassin. He's that dude, he's the wall holder then, and we've seen plenty of those.
Yeah.
You don't want to be that guy.
Right, but if you do it well, that's the thing though. If you can, like, who was it? You guys remember Shard? Shard was a lot like that. She was kind of a wall holder. Oh my god, wall holder and a wall leaner. But her character was also, she did all that dark and stereotypical, like, oh, I'm so edgy kind of stuff. But when she did it, she made it interesting. You actually wanted to know more. It's because I think part of it for her was because she stuck with it and she knew what she was doing. And she knew
you have to be dedicated to it for sure.
So she didn't go out of her way, when she didn't get a lot of game or a lot of, traction on some days, she didn't throw a hissy fit and say like, "Why is nobody role playing with me?"
Yeah, you don't do that.
Moved on and knew that she was building it up.
Ask Jazz how many times I stood at the wall as just a faceless guard.
Yep.
Because that was the character, and there were days I hated standing there because I'm like, I'm getting no role play. I'm literally standing out here while she has negotiations. Whoever and whenever, I don't know how they're having negotiations, but I'm being a guard. And she would come out, "Oh, Ringot, you're still here." And he looked at her like this blank look like, I should be somewhere else. So you got to be dedicated to it. If you're not dedicated to it, you're just a faceless wall lurker.
Yep.
Yeah.
And people were afraid of Rengots. The people that I did negotiations with were always, he's still out there, probably. He makes me really nervous. Good, he should. Aren't you worried he'll do something? He won't do anything unless I tell him to. And
then she would say, "So you should behave," and then smile at him with that vodka smile. Like,
behave.
It was always so funny though, because even though he didn't hardly interact with anybody, he had even years later people were afraid of his character. He emanated this rage and this dangerousness that
I didn't pull a Tilder to do it.
No,
I did my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice.
And
It was really
you have
cool.
to make it your own. And literally, I just wanted him to be this ominous presence. You look and you're like, dude, I'm unnerved with his presence.
Well, and going into that, you Tilder and Jazz's husband Triton, you all are all in a lot of ways you are all the exact same character in
Oh man, that's too much brooding in one room.
completely different ways. You were very intimidating, you were very dark, you were very serious, but each one of you came at that from such a completely different angle that outside of that core, there was nothing similar to any of you whatsoever. I mean, you were very individuals, but, there's only so many different, kinds of ways somebody can be.
Yeah.
Let's see. Go to this real quick here. Rentonus in the Discord chat says, inspiration or plagiarism? Oh, boy. I'm going to bitch about George R.R. Martin, you and, everybody else, for a second.
My goodness.
In my quest for inspiration, I discovered that A Song of Ice and Fire is just pretty explicitly the War of Roses with Hadrian's Wall thrown into a fantasy setting. This world is interesting for its world building and its symbolism and whatnot. I'll admit, sure, but his characters are just people from history in that time period in most cases. In every single way, appearance, behavior, and their fate, etc., like Robert. No one really notices it, so I guess inspiration can be taken from anywhere. And that's exactly it. You can recreate all sorts of stuff as long as you do it in a new and interesting way or plop it into an environment completely alien. One of the examples we have here this is off the top of my head, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and Harry Potter.
Yep.
Well, Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. And
what was the one we were discussing just a couple days ago? Babylon 5.
Babylon 5.
You were saying it was spun off
Straczynski
of...
got most of the inspiration. It's basically it's a retelling of the King Arthur legend in space. Is what he
Yeah.
It's where he said he got his inspiration from. And it's a great.
It makes
show.
total sense.
Yeah, but like I said, these Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Harry Potter. These at this point, Harry Potter may be the newest of them, but they're timeless. They're classic. They're going to be around. They're going to be around 100 years from now. But to dumb it down, old smart guy finds naive young guy, sets him on a path to take down an evil power emperor glowing eyeball.
Not like Star Wars: A New Hope. Hey,
they're literally all the same story. I mean,
yep.
It's just the same thing, and at their core, that's all it is. And because of that, if they're all exactly the same, why is each one of them individually cherished and kind of timeless? And that comes down to, like what Rentos was saying, the details.
Also, it comes down to the people who are attracted by that, because you have some people that love Lord of the Rings and some people that don't. You have some people that love Star Wars and some people that don't.
Yep.
It is how it attracts and gets people to feel.
Yeah, it's all about. It's kind of like what
you have some people
Andre
that love
Lord
wizards and some people that don't.
Yeah, it's finding new and different ways to make the same old thing felt. That's exactly what it is, and so. But since each one of these stories is epic for its different reason, each makes you feel, think, and grow attached to each character in different ways. And even though the overarching storyline is all the same, it's all in the little details, and that makes a huge difference. And if you can rearrange that, you can rip off Drizzt Do'Urden if you had to. In a lot of ways, ironically, that's kind of exactly what I did with Xanis. The difference was I had never known who Drizzt Do'Urden was until long after I'd created him, and even then, even longer before I read one of the books. So turns out it's like, shit.
But you were a monk that kind of still remembered being a Teardal, so it was a little different.
True.
So you made it your own, so you were still unique.
Yeah, he was never... Yeah, well, and that goes to the fact of where I got his idea was from Angel from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Which made Ren
really,
really hate your character. Yeah. He's like, he knows better. He knows better, and he's still playing the good shoe.
You've been on the good side, the freeing side. Let your anger flow through you.
Exactly. That's what it was.
Give in to your hate.
You have betrayed your purpose. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I like that. This is you you want to go over the part here you added because I actually like this, or do you have it up?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You want to hit the 7 basic plot types because I didn't know. I know this stuff is out there. That's why I ask you guys. So
it's called nerd homework.
It is basically. That's the thing. There's so many. There's each one of us can only know so much. So when we come up with these things, it's like, well, here's what I know. Everybody add your little 2 cents if you have any extra.
Okay. So there are 7 basic plots. One is overcoming the monster, which is where the protagonist sets out to defeat an antagonistic force, often evil, which threatens the protagonist and or the protagonist's homeland. And the examples that they give are Perseus, Theseus, Beowulf, Dracula?
Dracula? I guess he would be the monster being overcome, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a little... Okay.
Yeah.
War of the Worlds, 7 Samurai, James Bond, Star Wars.
Which is why 7 Samurai has been made over in every era in different way you can possibly think of. It's a damn good story.
And also in different countries, too.
Yeah.
It's not always 7 Samurai. You see it a lot in Western...
There was what was the one recently that had Chris Pratt and Denzel Washington was basically 7 Samurai with cowboys. That's exactly. It was. I forget what the movie was called, but it was just 7 Samurai but cowboys.
Yeah, it was. You said it, Uni.
The Magnificent 7.
That was it.
Yes,
it was. That was a good.
Which was also made in the 60s.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's.
I love that one.
It's kind of like A Star Is Born. It's remade every 20 years.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. What's the next one?
The second one is Rags to Riches, and that is where the poor protagonist acquires power, wealth, and or a mate, loses it all, and gains it back, growing as a person as a result.
Oh, Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd and
Coming to America.
And Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
The examples they give are Cinderella, Aladdin, Jane Eyre, David Copperfield. I'm going to go ahead and add Harry Potter into that one.
Harry Potter would be a good one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Mr. Harry.
Quick ADD moment. What's everyone feeling on that Aladdin remake?
Dude,
I like it. So I like what I see.
I will say, I will quote you from last episode. Hey, I sold this lamp to a Fresh Prince. No refunds. I cracked up so hard.
Yeah.
I will say that it's one of those things because the first time when they showed him blue, I was like,
he don't look cool. I don't know. Good luck with that.
I think it was this. I think they have the same problem they had like when Alita Battle Angels first preview. The CGI was rough. It was really rough. But when you went to the movie, they had cleaned it up, and it finally got where it looked realistic and looked right. And I'm hoping
maybe that's what they're gonna do.
Yeah, I think it was one of those like. It was kind of like with the Deadpool 2 commercial where they're like, "Oh, really? We don't even have his arm animated yet?" That kind of thing. But yeah, I think. I was very dubious at first, but after hearing a little bit of the song, and Smith came out flat out and said, like, yeah, I am not Robin Williams. I am very well aware of that, so I'm going to have to do my own thing. And it's like, okay.
And I appreciated that he didn't try to mimic Robin Williams. He made his own way, and I think there's always going to be people who are like, Robin Williams is the only person permitted to ever do Aladdin ever.
Yeah, except for in the second movie where they got another guy to play the genie and he actually did really good, or the TV show where he did that same guy did the genie and he did really good.
You're right. I remember that.
Yeah. So it can be done. I just think people get very stuck on an idea and then they can't let it go.
Yeah. So all right,
let it go.
On.
The third one is The Quest, where the protagonist and companions, or not, set out to acquire an important object or to get to a location. They face temptations and other obstacles along the way.
That sounds like the Force Awakens and the Last freaking Jedi all rolled into one.
Actually, I think the best example of this would be Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle.
Oh yeah, totally.
Lord of the Rings.
What? Yeah, sure. If you're gonna go with the obvious thing.
Sorry, Uni, go ahead.
The fourth one is Voyage and Return, where the protagonist goes to a strange land, and after overcoming the threats it poses to them, they return with experience. For example, Alice in Wonderland. Okay, I guess they have Mad Max Fury Road on here.
I mean, technically, I guess they do go to that other area that looks a lot like the first area while fighting cars from all areas, and then they go back to the area they started at. Technically, it's true, and it was a great movie, but a little weird.
SpongeBob SquarePants movie is also listed as a Voyage and Return.
I guess technically that would be accurate.
I haven't seen it, so I'll take their word for it.
Then there's comedy, which a light and humorous character with a happy or cheerful ending, a dramatic work, and in which the central motif is the triumph over adverse circumstance, resulting in a successful or happy conclusion.
Romeo and Juliet.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It says the majority of romance films fall into this category.
Dim rom-coms.
What was it? The Proposal. Yeah, Ryan Reynolds and what's her face?
Yep.
Yeah, Sandra Bullock. That was it. That was a good one. I like that one.
We can go back to the 80s, some cheesy stuff like Mannequin. That stuff is hilarious.
Cheesy.
Super cheese.
That is a classic.
Yeah,
Such a classic. Good. I actually watched a stupid video. I think it was from Dan Bell. He does the urban exploration, but he actually went back and revisited the locations from in those malls and in those shopping centers in New York as they were like just 3 or 4 years ago. That was a 25-minute video that I do not feel I wasted my time with.
There you go.
So,
excellent.
Comedy.
Yep. And then tragedy, which is when the protagonist's character's flaw or greatest mistake is their undoing. Their unfortunate end evokes pity at their folly and at the fall of a fundamentally good character.
The Lion King.
And they cite examples like Macbeth, The Picture of Dorian Gray, Bonnie and Clyde.
Well, that was not so much a story as they're just their actual life.
Yeah,
but
true.
I mean, technically, Julius Caesar. That was apparently that was a real thing. I guess who knew? Hamilton. I actually don't know. I've never seen Hamilton because I live in Oklahoma, and the closest thing we have to Broadway is Texas. Yeah, I mean, come on. We have a couple great places. I got to see the Lion King play here, but there's only so much we can do. We're just very tiny. And lastly,
I understand.
Last one is Rebirth, in which an event forces the main character to change their ways and often become a better person. Really good example is A Christmas Carol.
Mm-hmm. Xanus.
Groundhog Day.
Oh, I love Groundhog
Day.
Oh, Groundhog's Day, yes.
Xanus.
That's kind of, I didn't know that was a trope. I mean, I knew it was a trope, but yeah, Rebirth would be the one. So, yeah. So that was, the 7 basic plots, and really almost any story is going to fall into those 7 things in one form or another, or maybe a combination of the two. I mean, you could have a voyage and return that's a comedy. Let's see.
Oh yeah, you can have a
Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
A mix and match of all of those. In fact, I think I also mentioned the hero's journey in our notes, and the hero's journey is something that everybody is familiar with and everybody knows. It's Star Wars, it's Lord of the Rings, it's Harry Potter, it's
Yeah, I love. It's got a little roundy, no-y like circle thing. It says supernatural aid, threshold guardian, threshold helper, mentor, temptation, abyss, death and rebirth, transformation, atonement, return, call to adventure, and it just goes in circles. Like, yeah, that's pretty much all those stories.
Yep.
So. Like always, when we're gonna do one of these, everyone pretty much has a good idea on inspiration. It's something that inspires you, makes you want to do a thing or feel a thing, or gives you an idea, or makes you get off your fat potato eating butt and do something.
But I like my taters.
Gonna get me some French fried potatoes. Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Extra fake.
Mustard with them. Mustard.
Reckon I aim to kill you with it.
Also a great movie.
Yeah, Billy Bob. So with plagiarism, basically, in a nutshell, is just outright copying another's work while claiming ownership, through lack of proper quoting or attribution. Permission to do so was neither sought nor received, so its unmasking usually leads to painful repercussions for plagiarism. Look at most politicians' speeches in one form or another. It seems like every year someone's getting caught like plagiarizing a speech from somewhere else, and it doesn't matter what side because everybody's stupid.
Well, I think they all have the same writer.
Well, that is,
if I'm not mistaken. There's like one dude that just writes
like, I'm
political speeches.
Yeah. And he still doesn't do it. And here I've been watching Babylon 5 again, and I will say some of the most inspirational speeches are done by Bruce Boxleitner, or the guy that played Jakar in that show, who most everyone else knows the guy that played Jakar from that show is the one-armed man in the movie where he had only one-armed. What was that with Harrison Ford? I forget what it's called now. Not Patriot. Fugitive, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he was the one-armed man in that. But David something Katsoulis, I think David Katsoulis. But like some of the speeches that they give, they're leaders and they're supposed to be inspiring, and they're written by J. Michael Straczynski, and they're very good speeches and they're delivered perfectly. And then I see speeches from like all of our presidents or Congress or the Senate. It's like they're stuttering and they're like falling over themselves, even though they're reading it. It's like, can you guys not just get basic like how to speak in public classes? Do all this money you guys have out there, you should devote one tiny room into the Senate building and like how to speak properly to an audience. Like maybe read the speech beforehand, for example.
I was going to say maybe their teleprompters are messed up. I don't know. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt.
That was one poor Obama. He had a real hard time with teleprompters. He was not great off the cuff at times. Great at reading, not great off the cuff. And others, they're not good at either. So I can't really fault them for that. And I can only imagine, at least with like a president, you're only speaking to the entire world. So I suppose there would be a little pressure. Everybody's going to be hearing what you're saying or picking it apart. Given overseas, most countries, they don't give a shit what we do, which is awesome because neither should we. But that's beside the point. But yeah, seeing all that stuff, come on, guys, you can do better. Just be inspirational for a change. Don't fumble. Don't fumble the words. So plagiarizing is bad. It happens a lot. Who was it that recently got accused of that? I remember back in the day, the guys that did The Matrix, they got sued for plagiarism. Some lady claiming that they had just ripped off her story. Who was the most recent one? It was a big movie that just came out too. Doggone it. But shoot, now I can't remember. It was I think it was actually one of the Marvel movies or something like that. But someone's like, I went to them with that story, and they just dismissed it, and then they made $1 billion off of it. Did they? Did they really? Where's your proof? I have it written right here on paper. And how do you prove that? I don't. And that's the other problem. Just because you're accused of plagiarism doesn't mean you actually plagiarize. At least on that level. You could just be trying to be sued and get rich quick. Yeah. So
that's why you can't, and I know this, I've tried, you can't send a story to like Pixar or Disney or a company like that. Mm-hmm. They just straight up will send it back.
Yeah, yes.
Because they send it back with a note saying, we appreciate this, but for legal reasons, we can't read this because if they read it and then, don't want to do it.
Something they've got in the middle of production is like it copies it almost
has anything in common with it. They're trying to cover their butts.
Yeah. Like I actually saw, apparently there was one guy, the new Star Wars trailer came out and the Emperor, at the end. Apparently somebody posted online 7 years ago when like The Force Awakens came out, like he actually plotted out that it was going to end with the Emperor returning, and that was going to be the key pivotal point in the last movie, and that's what they were going to be facing against 7 years ago. So,
and that's kind of a tough situation because, I mean, on the one hand, we don't know that whoever was writing the last Star Wars didn't see that and go, "Oh my God, that's cool! I'm going to use that."
yeah.
And at the same time, like, who the hell is this guy to them?
There's millions of people out there. What was it? I think going back to George R.R. Martin, he said years ago he actually saw a thread somewhere where one or two people have actually guessed the end of not the show, but the books, like the ending he had in mind, almost down exactly. And he had to decide if he was going to change it or just keep it that way because they may not have gotten any traction. He never said obviously who it was because that would be stupid. But apparently somebody's already figured out how Song of Ice and Fire ends. They just don't know that they have it right until I guess the last book never comes out. Because it's never coming out. It's not going to happen, guys. There's just no way. It's not going to happen.
I don't think he's going to make it, like, physically to that last book.
No, he's
be wrong.
He's too busy now doing, like, I think the 2 spin-offs of Game of Thrones at this point. So, he's good.
And, sleeping on a big pile of money.
There's that, too.
How do you sleep at night? On a giant pile of money with many beautiful women. Plagiarized from The Simpsons.
That was Mr. Lightcastle, right?
One of the things that in writing class that they had said that when you are writing something, if you send it in, make sure that you have all of your original writing of that story so that you can show the progression. And I forget what it was, but there was a big story that came out and it was challenged in court that this very well-known person had written this story and this other person said that they wrote it. And in the end, the person who challenged won because she could lay it out to the judge. Where the idea came from, how she came up with it, showed all the rough drafts going back 10 years.
Yeah.
And this other writer couldn't do that when asked in the court documents, well, how did you come up with it? I don't know. I just did. But how did you come up with it?
Right.
I don't know. It just came up with it. It just came to me one day.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's not how that works.
It's not how that works,
That's not how any of this works.
Right. And so the judge was like, I hate to say this, but I believe her.
Yeah.
And you're fucked.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why because people have said, because I have all my original work for the books that I've been writing since I was 15. I have them all. And they've said, why are you keeping these? These are because they're really bad, guys. Okay,
well, yeah,
they're really, really bad.
But they show a progression.
Crap. Okay, it's really bad, and it's handwritten, and it's just bad. But it shows the progression of the story as it went from when I was 15 until when I, finalized the story in some form when I was in my early 40s. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's a kind of a big difference between like then and now, because nowadays you can self-publish, and and then they can pick you up after that.
Right, and that's probably what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to self-publish once I'm to that point. I'm just gonna put it out there, and I'm never going to make money off of it, but I'm okay with that. So I just want to publish my work.
Yeah, well, I think my Mark Tufo, the guy I've talked about several times, his wife talked him into it. He published, I think, on Amazon or something like that, digitally, and then he got picked up, and now he writes a book or two a year.
And I have a couple of friends that write that had their first couple books published and then got dropped, and now they self-publish. So it can go either way.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I mean, that's kind of the benefit of living in the modern age versus, back in the old days when you'd send in the manuscript, hoping that you wouldn't just get completely ripped off.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Yep.
So, what's the difference between inspiration and plagiarism? A lot of our peers get ideas from, things that we watch or read or interact with in some form or another. Like I said earlier, I took the idea for Xanis from Angel from Buffy the Vampire Slayer and used that as the main premise, and guy did bad things, was cursed, and got a conscience or a soul and tried to repent for it. So was that plagiarism? I mean, the very base of it, maybe, but really I took just a general idea of one of the old tropes of, rebirth, basically, as Yunfei had put in there, and
you
plopped
can
it into
mimic something
EverQuest in a fantasy.
Give a, this inspired me kind of change. But that's not plagiarism. It's plagiarism if you do it word for word and you claim it's yours.
Right. Exactly. And that's the big difference is I took the general premise and, none of the personality was the same. Obviously not a vampire because I wasn't going that far. I like the guy, but I'm not going the vampire route.
And the one time he could have become a vampire, you just went, nope, and walked away.
Yeah,
it's still one of my favorite moments.
Ain't nobody got time for that vampire nonsense, man.
Yeah, vampire that bit him. He's like, "Yo, been of the night walkers now." It's like, and nope.
He just went nope and walked away.
Yeah, I wasn't messing with that.
But yeah, that's not plagiarism.
Yeah, that's taking inspiration.
That is inspiration.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and when someone sees something like that, and they recreate a version of it in an MMO, for example. I used a lot of with events. I used a lot of stories from real world things from the Lore podcast. Which, if you haven't listened to Lore, it's a really good podcast, and you should listen to it. Millions of people can't be wrong. And I refit them in several of the events to work within like the ESO at the time when I was doing these. So it was things from a story where it was literally raining meat down out of the sky, like chunks of it, pounds of meat. To the Jersey Devil, or a haunted tree that was said to be used to, hang people during, I forget what era, probably the Crusades or medieval times, or I don't know, 100 years ago in Europe or somewhere. And then it was, of course, supposed to be haunted, and people would get bad feelings, and there'd be evil vibes and shadows that would crawl out of it, that kind of thing. And all that stuff was perfect for... Oh, my neck popped. Sorry. Just it gave some great ideas for short-term events, for 2-hour events to here's a problem, here's how to solve it. And each one of them was unique, but each one of them was taken from a real-life event that I heard off of that podcast. And it made something better than a kidnapping plot.
Back when Sabzu was still playing, and I'd already been doing this, when you joined Ren's little side guild, I would send him on missions. Like the first mission to get in was terrible. And that was my own creation. And then the other missions, like I'd send people out on, it would be this or that. But then Sabzu's like, hey dude, why don't we just do some Dark Brotherhood quests, but make them EverQuest friendly. I said, that's glorious. So we kind of started doing some of that before things kind of fell apart. But man, it was fun. And people were engaged. Like, these are freaking awesome. And we just didn't tell them it was from Oblivion.
Right. Well, no. And see, that's great. Because you get the idea and you adapt and
we just adapted, kind of like those horror stories you're talking about.
Well, yeah, and it was fun for you guys because you're like, but you had
they have no idea.
You had great ideas from that, and it made other people they got a lot of enjoyment. You told us the same story in a different way and made them feel it, which that's kind of the whole point. So and the thing is, with all of that stuff, the inspiration, it's a wonderful and it's an amazing thing. And anyone that says they aren't influenced or inspired by something in their ideas or their writing is either one of two things. They're either full of shit or completely unself-aware, or maybe they're just completely unaware of how full shit they are. Could be, I guess.
I mean, every writer that I've ever met in my whole life will be able to tell you what other writers or what movies or what situation inspired them to write the story that they're writing. Mm-hmm. And if they can't, then they're completely out of touch with their own writing, because they're like, oh, this is a completely original. No, stop talking.
Yeah.
Don't even finish that phrase. No, it's not original.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in writing class, creative writing, It's a lot of fun, by the way. Anybody, even if you don't think you can write
Yes, it is.
sentence, go to a creative writing class if you ever get a chance to take it. They are fun, and they teach you a lot about yourself, and they really hone your writing skills, even if you're not going to be a writer. So that's a little thing there. There's always creative writing classes, and they usually don't cost very much, $25, $30. Go to one. They're worth it. Anyway, I was at a creative writing class for school, and that was the first thing the teacher said. First of all, nothing original under the sun. He quoted Ecclesiastes. He said, "There's nothing new under the sun. Don't try to claim that you are." And not even 15 minutes later,
Oh no.
when he's going around the room and he's, who's a writer? And a lot of us raised our hands. And he says, "Are you a writer or do you want to be a writer?" And I said, "I'm a wannabe writer. I'm pretty good, but I obviously need work or I wouldn't be here. And
Right.
I'm here to learn and to grow." And he said, I'm going to like. Next. Yeah, he was like, "Suck up." I said, "Yeah, well, I know how to talk to writing teachers." But anyway, the next person was like, "Well, I've been a writer. I've got some short stories published and and was going on, I swear, 10 minutes just yapping about herself.
About how great they are and how they
how they
and
he listened.
How they
He
write
had
all their
the most-
stories in a Starbucks.
Yeah. He had the most attentive look on his face the whole time she's talking, and he's like, "So are you done now?" And I'm like, "Oh, here we go." She's like, "Well, I can stop now, I guess." And he's like,
Oh,
"Okay,
gosh.
so who inspired you?" "What do you mean? Who inspired you? Where did you get this idea?
Oof.
Where did you read it? Where did you find the idea in order to take it and run with it in this new direction?" Which it wasn't a new direction, by the way.
I have an add-on to your story, Jazz, and you're done.
It was like straight out of Romeo and Juliet. But okay, I'm almost done. I promise.
No, you're good.
And
fascinated.
it was just like recapped Romeo and Juliet, which is why it was so funny.
Oof.
Like
No.
right down to like the teenager thing. I mean,
in
the
the
whole
family
thing
and the
from Romeo
houses
and Juliet.
and yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing. And she was like, "Well, I did this and this, but I came up with this on my own. I've never really been much of a reader." Never say that in a writing class, by the way.
Oh, like half my class was like that too.
Yeah.
So-
Nothing
I don't like to read.
pisses off of you. So the writing teacher just said, "That's not true. You can stop talking now." And then he moved on to the next person. But it was really funny. But anyway, go ahead, Striffy.
I have a tag onto that, and I hate it because she's not a bad person. I just didn't think she was very experienced in that kind of thing. It was kind of self-inflated ego kind of thing. We were at a dev drink up when I was still in grad school, and I had brought my laptop, and we were meeting actually industry artists working in the game industry.
Ooh.
I had brought my 3D sculpted Velociraptor up there, and I was hoping for feedback. And he's like, "Oh, so what do you do?" I was like, I'm trying to be a 3D artist. I'm doing this. I made this model because we're doing a character kind of thing. So I picked a Velociraptor or whatever. This is cool. And he started asking me questions about this. How long have you been an artist? I said, "Well, I started in getting serious in undergrad. I mean, we call it community college. I did this. I still got a lot to learn." Kind of like you did, right?
Yeah.
Being humble will get you the world, folks. Anyhow, then a fellow student that shall remain nameless was then asked some similar questions. She was showing something off. "How long have you been an artist?" "I've been an artist since I was in kindergarten. I did all this stuff." But then I wanted to face palm so hard, and I could tell the look in the face of the professional. It just spoke volumes. It's like your professor.
Yeah.
He wasn't rude, but he was like, "Okay, I gotta go get a drink now," and he just freaking split.
Yeah.
And this other student looked at me, I looked at them, and the other student was completely oblivious, and I felt
Just give it a thumbs up. Hey, you did adequate. Yeah.
Yeah, it was rough, but I mean that kind of stuff happens. I don't think people realize the severity of some of their words.
That goes into either you're full of shit or you're completely unself-aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when someone reads your stuff, if they can come up with the books that inspired you, that's awesome, by the way, and impressive as hell, because I had that happen at a writing conference that I went to, and they read a short snippet. I brought something for them to read in class, because we were all supposed to.
Yeah.
And they read it out in class, and then he said, "Now, I'm going to ask you if I'm right. But first, the question is, what books did you read as a child that promoted you to write this way?" And I started, he said, don't answer. I'm going to answer for you. And I want you to tell me if I'm right. And he listed all the books I read as a kid. I was like, okay, that's, and he was like 80. He was an old writer. I forget what his name. He actually turned out to be later. I looked him up and he was like a sci-fi guy, but
that's cool.
Way back, like before there were like, 1994 kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Way back there. But he knew that I liked Isaac Asimov, and he knew about Anne McCaffrey. He listed my 2 favorite writers in the whole world.
Anne McCaffrey, yes.
Just by reading what I had written. He says, you write just like they do. He says, I'm very impressed because you've obviously mimicked them, and that's good.
Yeah. Hey, Straffe, you need to go push to talk, man. Everyone's echoing through your mic. I've been trying to get your attention, but you're not listening. I can't take it anymore.
I even said anything, man.
I did it twice in the chat, trying to be subtle about it.
Oh,
yeah, he did say that, but I thought I couldn't hear the echo, so I thought maybe he did it already. But yeah,
sorry. All right, carry on. Sorry about that, man.
But anyway, yeah, it's cool and it's important for in any art, in anything, whether it's role play, storytelling, artwork, anything you see, read, study, is going to come out in what you do.
Yeah, and of course you're a lot of your personality will come out in that as well. But
yes,
if somebody else is reading your stuff and they're like, I can tell where this is inspired from, and they say, so what inspired you? And you're like, it's all original ideas. I'm afraid.
Yeah, don't do that.
Especially if you're in a class. I'm afraid it's not going to go too well for you.
No.
Yeah.
I was floored that
humility. Humility will get you a lot farther than ego in a lot of things.
I took writing classes. My first major was going to be for creative writing, and then I switched it to art because I just love
draw
art
good.
So much. Thanks. So I got to see in both of those classes or sets of classes, there were people that their head was so far up their bum they couldn't see how full of shit they were. Like, it was amazing, and especially in the writing class, because my teacher would ask. Oh my gosh, she was a hippie. She was great, but she would ask, well, what was your inspiration? Where did you take inspiration from? And there were like half the class would be like, oh, it's all mine. It's like, no, it's not.
No, it's not. Nothing is all yours. And that's in my role play. I take from characters I see in movies. I borrow from characters in books, like the best female lead I've ever had. And I'm sure anybody who's familiar with the character will probably go, aha! Kilishandra Rhee is from in a McCaffrey book. And I fell in love with that character, and I read the whole series. Yeah. And you can see her, in my opinion, in some of the characters that I play, because I loved that heroine type.
Yeah.
Imperfect, swearing, blunt. Who does that sound like?
Right.
It's my thing, and I loved that, and I fell in love with that. I was only like, I don't know, I started reading those books when I was like 11 or 12 or so. So I fell in love with those books, and you can tell because of the way that I create my characters. It isn't really honest if I turn around and say, oh, I came up with this myself.
Originally. Yeah.
Because I know what inspired me. I can tell you the female leads in the shows and the movies that I watch, that I'm taking a lot of that when I write into my books.
Yeah, well, and one of the author, Mark Tufo, with the zombie fallout and all that stuff, like he's not in the books. I think the character Mike Talbot's kind of a representation of him, but Talbot's wife Tracy, that's Tufo's actual wife's name. The boys that Talbot has, those are his actual kids. The dogs, like was it Henry the Bulldog, and another one. He actually did a series called The Book of Riley, which was his other bulldog. And it was all from the perspective of the bulldog in a zombie apocalypse. It was like a 4 mini books, and they were, and they had a little yapping Ben. It was like a terrier, and he would eat floor fries. He was always looking for floor fries, and it's super. But he wrote all that based off of people that he knew, or I've actually seen him. He's very active with his audience, and he's actually said, all right, he calls it the unfair contest of the day, because he had put out a challenge. and he'll just pick whichever one he likes most, and it has absolutely nothing to do with anything other than it's completely unfair, and he just does what he wants. But he's actually asked, like, hey, I need a name for a character. Anybody willing to, prop up their name to be used in the book, let me know. And everyone will be like, I'm good. Everyone will, obviously, all his fans will volunteer their own names to appear in one of his books, completely free of charge. I mean, it'd be awesome. But I mean, he uses what's at hand. He knows how to work with the fans, and he knows where his inspirations come from. He did a second series based off of the zombie one called Lycan Fallout, which happened 100 or 200 years later. And that came from apparently his wife turning to him one day while they were out shopping, and she said, werewolves are real popular right now. And he looked at her and said, and he actually, it was at the end of one of the books, or the foreword, and he's like, she knew what she had done. She didn't give me an idea. She didn't give me anything. All she said was, werewolves are real popular right now.
That's
and it germinated into a a 3-book series. And the way he did his werewolves, it was good. He did a really good job with werewolves. Very, very good. They were very terrifying, actually.
Can I take a stabbing guess? It was Talbot a werewolf?
Actually, no. They continued off. He was an unfinished vampire, and the werewolves, because it was 100 years after the zombie apocalypse now. Even though he was real careful because his zombie apocalypse books haven't finished, so he was a little vague on some of the details. But since he was unfinished, Talbot had survived all the way to that point, but he had been a funk because everything he knew in life had died off hundreds of years ago. But without all the humans around, because the zombies had largely taken care of all that, and humanity was in small villages basically at this point. But the werewolves no longer had a food source, and then one of them got it in their head that they should be rulers of the planet. So they started, instead of having the separate tribes and things like that, or the packs that werewolves had always had, he gathered all the werewolf packs into one, and they were the true Lycan, but when they would bite people and leave them, they would be like werewolves. So there were Lycan, and then there were werewolves, and they had it was a really cool way of doing it. He did a great job, and it was basically humanity's fight against Lycans and hordes of werewolves whenever the full moon would come around, trying to keep the last bastards of humanity alive. And
you guys were talking about writing style earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, because I love R.A. Salvatore, and I know everybody copies Drizzt, I like the way he did his stories, and that's kind of how I did my lore stories as well. So people say, "Hey, we love your stuff." I'm like, "Oh, thanks. It's just battle chucks. Come on."
Yeah,
he had good ones, but he had a couple stinkers in there that he said he didn't want to do.
Yeah, he got so good with some of it. It was kind of like, they're throwing a lot of money at you.
There was a point when he took, because I've met him a few times. He actually lived, when I was up in Maine, he lived in Massachusetts, I think, and would often come up to do signings and stuff like that. So my boyfriend at the time and I, we were playing EQ, found out he was playing EQ, got talking about that, and ended up going out to lunch a few times. But anyway, I remember he said once that he wanted to retire Drizzt. And he brought that to Wizards, and Wizards was like, really?
You mean
you
the
like money,
cow?
right? Yeah. They were like, you like money, right? You like food on your table? And he's like, yeah. Okay, then. So he ended up writing 3 more books.
Yeah.
I just meant the way he wrote his dialogue,
you meant his
story
style.
arc. And I liked his style, and that's kind of what I went with.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, I'm sure he's burned out of that character for sure.
Yeah.
Homeland and Starless Night are my favorite. They were written so well, in my opinion.
Yeah, the Icewind Dale trilogy. That was the first one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, and like I said, I had a character very similar to Drizzt in a lot of ways, but not at the time. And then
those are the prequels to the Icewind Dale trilogy, Homeland and Sojourner, and all that, Exile and all that stuff.
Yeah, those were excellent. I loved the ones when he was as a kid growing up in Menzo Branson, I think.
Oh yes, good stuff.
But yeah, and finally, by the way, thank you to Audible.com for giving us a good version of the audiobooks of his stuff, because before, 5 years ago, it was either it was impossible to find, and if you did find it, it was shit can garbage.
Ouch.
Yeah. Oh, it was rough, and it was one of those books like Sib. What was that series that you liked? Was it Wheel of Time?
Sword of Truth.
Sort of Truth.
Yes.
Yeah. So
The Wheel of Time was the other one.
okay. Yeah. So she loved that series, and so it was out on Audible. It was awesome. Unfortunately, it was a different narrator for every book, and every narrator pronounced the names wrong or differently than the previous one.
Oh, I hate that.
Nothing. Yeah. Nothing pulls you out of a name. What was it? Caitlin, I think, was one of the main girls.
Kaylin.
So, and then it turned. One of them was Kaylin. Then it was Caitlin. Then it was Catlin.
Colin. One called Colin.
Yeah.
That's a lot of C's and K's, man.
Right.
Like people trying to pronounce my name.
Yeah.
Yunfei, Yunfei.
And the thing is, I always pronounced it Yunfei.
Yeah.
And I don't, it's phonetically correct. I love it.
Well, I even, okay, so I was in, I'm sure nobody watches him, but Sinvicta, I was watching him on Twitch yesterday, and somebody gifted me a sub, and he said, thank you. The guy gifted like 5 subs. So he listed the names, and he got to my name and said Yunfei. And I was just blown away. So I wrote in the chat, I'm like, holy crap, dude, you're like the first one to ever pronounce it correctly right off the bat.
Yeah.
He's like,
especially
really?
after just reading it.
I know.
Yunfei. But, all right, so I forget where we were now. That was a fun talk, but I forgot. Let's see. So, yeah, inspiration and ideas is exactly what we should use to create our RP. And if we see something we love and we want to try to, recreate a piece of that, not just for ourselves, but, for having fun and roleplay, but also for those around us, unless, you blame constantly where it comes from, as to why everything sucks. If they'll enjoy it all the same, that's exactly that's what inspiration is supposed to be. That's, it was like what Straffe was saying with taking the stuff from the Dark Brotherhood or me from lore and sharing those stories in a different way with people that weren't aware of them. I mean, given those are, it's just a good way to get stuff out there. It's a good place to get ideas from, and that, in taking the old ideas and reinventing them, taking the tropes, the cliches, the truisms, and fitting them into the game world and the story and characters around you is exactly what we should be doing. That's the idea, because, again, there's no new ideas. So if you're inspired by something and you want to see if you can breathe it to life inside of your roleplay and inside of ESO or Final Fantasy XIV or World of Warcraft or Game of Choice, that's exactly what you should be doing. Now, just don't do it like you need a tall dark elf with the name Drizzt Doerden. That then you might need to flesh it out a little bit. But maybe that's just me.
That's what makes the person or the story original, is how you take it and use it.
Yeah.
You have to be your own dude. You can't be somebody else.
Yeah.
Or it's going to show through and they're not going to take you serious.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like you take, you have a tapestry, so you take all the string apart and then you reweave it into something of your own making. You're using the same basic form, but you're making it into its own thing for you and those people around you.
And how you do that, or how well you do that, is, that's what matters.
Yeah.
If you kind of weave it back into the same picture, it's
it
not as interesting as taking and weaving a whole completely different picture.
Yeah.
It's
like when you trace something. I mean, yeah, it looks very similar, but you kind of traced it. I mean, just saying, it's not really.
Then you just color outside the lines. There you go.
No, you don't do that.
Oh yeah, all over the paper. Just scribble all over.
This next part apparently was Yunfei just totally, completely plagiarizing some guy off Google Answers.
Yeah, I just copied and pasted it because I was like, he's already saying it.
He already said it. So
yeah, he's already saying it well.
We're gonna plagiarize some guy off of Google Answers. In the context of writing a homage, which is another way, inspiration homage. is a brand new work that is a shout out to another writer through referencing the latter's works in some way. There's a lot of ways to do this, and I'm a big fan of the referencing and the homage. Obviously, I do it all the time in my speech because I've got a memory that can't remember what year the War of 1812 ended. Not 1812, by the way. But I can remember you don't make friends with salad from The Simpsons from like 25 years ago. Don't ask me why. That's just how it works. So some of the ways to do that are writing something in the style of the other, or reusing a famous character to tell a different story, or reimagining a work in a different genre or universe. And that's kind of the one we do it all the time in, because even in a fantasy, if you take a character from like we just keep using Drizzt because that's the one we've set.
That poor guy, he's just never going to live it down.
How about this one?
It's just so saturated.
We'll take Sephiroth. So if you're wanting to recreate Sephiroth, there you go. So it's something a little different. Clearly the world of Final Fantasy VII is not really existent anywhere else, but at the same time, you really could drop, maybe not the world-ending half of Sephiroth into a story, because that might be considered a little bit of god-mopping, dropping a moon on a planet. A little bit. But like the early parts of the story where he's figuring out all that stuff and his personality, the giant fucking 18-foot katana sword, that kind of thing. You could definitely drop that into almost any fantasy or even a lot of sci-fi things, since Final Fantasy VII had a lot of sci-fi and steampunk elements to it. But you totally can do that. It's just a matter of paying enough attention to do that. But for this, whatever the method is, this new work recalls the putative genius of the original author without actually copying the original words. A formal homage also usually involves asking the original author for permission to reuse a character or imitate a style or even rework the entire story. And Yunfei, you want to read that part since it was actually you that did that, or you want me?
I had a character actually my first and only character in EQ1 was named Elephane. And I named her that because I really liked that name when I read it in one of the R.A. Salvatore books. I can't remember which one the first one she showed up in.
It sounds familiar,
she was just
but
this minor character, but she was like a pivotal point for Drizzt's life. And I remember asking him if I could use the name because I really liked it. And he was like, yeah, sure, I don't care.
In a video game?
Side note, he played a barbarian shaman. I forget the server. But I also wanted to go back up here and like scratch out reusing a famous character to tell a different story. Because in writing, that by definition, that's a fanfic.
Yeah, you're
using
doing fanfic
that
at
in
point.
roleplay is probably not a good idea because you are still playing that. You are still trying to play Drizzt or Sephiroth or
and
what I mean?
Too many people do that, and one, they do it badly, and two, we're all sick of it, and three,
and if you do, at least don't use the same name. Just you could do all the other stuff, and most people may not even figure it out.
Oh yeah, I don't think there's a problem with taking a character and playing that character in roleplay as long as you don't use the name.
Yeah.
The problem is they go the other direction. They use the name, but they make a completely different character, and they're
really not original. They're not really thinking about that. They just want to use something quick.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty much it.
Well, it's just something they're a huge fan of, and they, and I get that. We all watch stuff when you come. It's like when you come out of a really good action movie, and you're like, yeah, I want to go live my life a quarter mile at a time, and then you're like, oh yeah, but I got bills to pay, and that shit just doesn't work. So I just gotta go eat potato chips on the couch. Maybe I won't shave my head and start talking in a deep voice and working out 8 hours a day. But could just be me. Could just be me. So anyway, then there's the step too far.
I
go ahead.
want to throw something in. I know it's homage, but I wanted to say something about writing styles. because you can also take. I don't think it would be plagiarism because you've done it, and I had to look up the book series. Well, besides Zombie Fallout, Adrian's Undead Journal.
Chris
The
Philbrook.
the way they write. You know, you wrote. I can't remember which character you used. Tarvala. You wrote it as it was
First person perspective.
Yeah. I mean, and I wanted to mention that because they're, writing styles too can be copied.
Yep,
or,
that's true.
Done similarly. I mean, it's all been done before, but it adds a twist to your storyline or to your character, how you do your journals.
Yeah, well, and like some of the stories it was technically her journal, but it was just me telling the story as it happened from her perspective, even though it's kind of like with the Zombie Fallout. Okay, so we got Zombie Fallout, Adrian's Undead Tales, and say the Dresden Files. Those three are all written from first-person perspective, and two of them are actually supposed to be physically written into a journal by the character themselves. And Dresden's a little different because I don't think his is journal, but it is.
No, it's not journal, but those two specifically popped into my head, and I thought that would be a good thing to get out.
No, and you're right. And each one of them, even though they're both from the first-person perspective, and the characters only know what or the reader only knows what the character knows and tells the story as it unfolds before the character. All three of them are written in completely different ways. Dresden's got a little bit. Dresden has some humor, but he's definitely more of he's a little bit more down to earth and a lot more cynical in a lot of ways than Dresden. Not Dresden. The Adrian's Undead Diaries. He's from a very different point of view, unlike a lot of zombie things like Walking Dead and things like that, where they're always, for whatever reason, they're always traveling around. Adrian's Undead Diaries, this guy is on a college campus when this shit goes down, and he hunkers down and turns his campus into he turns it into a fortress. He stays where he's at and he defends his area. And same thing with Talbot.
The problem with the Walking Dead is they always get run out of their little fort after they build it up, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it like the way Adrian did it, because it was a book, it was the problems that came up were more of the interesting, kind of fascinating real life day-to-day problems that you would have, like supplies or gathering wood, or if there were looters and zombies. Actually, he was actually afraid of being snuck up on them in the middle of the night when he was alone at first. And then of course there's the act of bringing in more people, and can you trust them? And it was, it had a little bit of humor here and there, but unlike say the Tufo and the Talbot books, where, one of the first lines...
Some asshole is licking my peephole.
Right. Exactly.
I love that line.
Yeah, he's got shirts that say that. But the very first interaction with the zombie he sees is it chased his kid to the house. The kid slammed the door, and he's like, Dad, there's a zombie out there. And he looked through the peephole. He's like, look out the peephole, and there's just some asshole licking my peephole. Well, writing that down doesn't sound nearly as good as it was when I thought of it, but yeah, there it is. That kind of a thing. Very different styles, all with the exact same way of doing it.
Also, another thing that I've seen on the writing style is using doing a holo recorder. We did that a lot in
Star Wars.
Star Wars: The Old Republic, yeah.
Or even a little bit with the holo tapes from Fallout when you guys did those stories. You're doing them like you're recording into a holo.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's still first person, but it's.
I just wanted to touch on that different writing styles in this one, just because it's, I know it's not plagiarism, but it's unique. Each person, how you decide to put your story out there is unique.
Yeah, not everything
it
has
gives
to
you
be
a little,
third person omniscient, where it's like an ambivalent God's telling the story and knows all the facts and this kind of that, which there's nothing wrong with that, but there are a lot of other different ways to do it too. So, okay, where was he? So there's inspiration. And then there's the second part of the title, which is when you take it a step too far and you're just flat out plagiarizing. This one comes in a few forms in my not so humble, but incredibly humble, because it's the best part of my personality, opinion. As we've said 1,000 times now, the most obvious one, playing Drizzt, even naming yourself after him. And by the way, ADD moment, Congratulations, because Drizzt Erden is recognized by the Google Docs program and did not ask me to spell check it and demand that it was misspelled. So good on you, Google Docs, for having actually put a fictional character in there and knowing I wasn't misspelling some, I don't know, drizzle or something like that.
That's cool, because there are a few fictional characters in there.
You want to see something really cool? Click on Drizzt, and then right click, put the little cursor in the middle of it, and then where was it? You got to highlight the word, and then
you can define it.
Yeah, and then you hit define, and on the side it will actually bring up a little thing. It'll like link to Drizzt Erden and tell you who that is and what about him. I was like, that's super cool. So anyway, good on you, Google Docs, getting up there. I for one welcome our new Google overlords. Skynet is great. Everybody loves Skynet.
Always be nice to Siri.
Mm-hmm.
Not me, bro. I'll fight him.
I do not have any association with the one known as Straffe,
That's
who
right.
lives down in Texas, and his address is... and you can reach him
remember
by...
this. You humanist turncoat. Yeah,
Mobius did nothing wrong.
I'm always super polite to Siri, just in case.
Yeah,
that makes fun for it.
So anytime you use an out-of-game character down to the name and the personality, you done already screwed up. Don't use... You take chunks of things, that's fine. Don't take especially the name. Given she did with Elephane, at least she had permission too. On top of that, but were you trying to play Elephane?
But that wasn't. Wasn't like super duper well known either. I mean, I wouldn't have never have guessed.
No.
So
I also spelled it very differently. And
honestly, it sounds like something out of Lord of the Rings more than even R.A. Salvatore.
Yeah.
The character I was playing was not even close to the character that he had created. Like, they were two totally different women.
Yeah. Wasn't she a moon elf that he met? He got taught to be a service elf. I remember this crap.
I mean, what's the statute of limitation on spoilers for?
I'm pretty sure we're well beyond the
old news.
25 to 30-year-old book.
She was the little girl when in Homeland, I think.
Oh, yeah.
When he went up to the surface for his very first raid, and he thought that they were, I don't know what he thought.
Yeah, now I remember her. Okay,
she was going to go up and have a picnic with their cousin elves or some shit. I don't know what he thought.
Yeah, they all got slaughtered, and I was reveling in it. What?
She was the little girl that he saved.
Yeah, I remember.
And you end up
I remember
seeing her again later. But I really liked the name, and I liked that she was just quietly a turning point for the main character. I thought that was really cool.
So, okay, all right. And another version of the plagiarism is people that just play the NPCs from the game world. Like if you, say, played Antonia Bale in EverQuest 2, or the potato ruler of Ul'dah, Nanamo in Final Fantasy 14. Or, I've mentioned those people that actually do roleplay, those amazing characters that do another podcast on RP and Final Fantasy 14. But they're doing that, and I know that they do that, and while they're actually very nice people and they're lovely, and I do enjoy their podcast, or I did when I listened to it and was playing Final Fantasy 14. It's unfortunate because while I get loving a character and wanting to make more story and stuff like that, it's unoriginal. No matter what stories you make up with them after that, the original character is not yours. It's somebody else's. It's
all fanfic, right?
Yeah, it's basically
that crosses into fanfic, and depending on how you handle it, cosplay.
Yeah, well, and in
which
this
is
case,
fine in itself, but that's not really something you should bring into roleplay when you're creating stories with other people.
And actually playing these powerful rulers, and then they'd even said things like they would have all these side stories, but then if a new expansion came out and something happened to that character they would have to try to rework what they had done with the main story quest. And it's like, that's, if you don't play that character, you don't have to do that, because you're just plagiarizing at that point. And as much as I hate to have to say that, it's exactly what it is. You're just taking other people's work and playing it as if it was yours. And clearly on that one, everybody knows it's not. Just do something, original. Even if you played something similar or close to it, that's all well and good. But when you're flat out renaming your character after that,
But here's the deal. It is their sub. It is their game. They can play it how they want to play it.
They can.
No matter how we feel about it.
Which is also,
they get to do what they want to do because they are the ones playing the game.
And when they went to Balmong and the rest of the server there basically shunned them for it, everybody else pays that same amount and it can happen. That's what I'm saying. This is
I know.
This isn't saying they can't do it. It's saying it's a bad idea. And it is you're plagiarizing.
If you do it, you've got a good chance of most decent role players ignoring you completely.
Even not so decent.
And I totally agree with that, but it's their thing.
No, you're right, and you're right.
And
you're
most people who do that, in my own opinion, they're going to keep doing it.
Oh yeah,
because they want that power that comes with that character.
They want the cool factor, totally.
Yeah. So I mean, and no matter what we say, it's still going to happen.
I think it's partly because they just their personality is super cutesy, and it kind of fits with the character that they're taking over. But at the same time, there's a lot of downsides to it, and you're why you are right that you can do that. Technically, too, on the other hand, Square Enix could come in and say, yeah, you can't have that name anymore. That's part of the main story quest. Or the fact that it's actually not blocked is surprising. I know.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, that's very.
And you can also, if somebody really wanted to be awful, they could report you to the person you're plagiarizing, and you can be notified to knock it off. There have been instances of that in the past. Where people have been notified they can't, or the game has been notified you can't let these people use this name.
And and then you log in and your character's name is changed
to X.
Yeah.
I just remembered something about that actually. When Ben and I started playing Rift, I wanted to play a character named Alika because I liked that name. And I went to type it in and it said the name was already taken. I'm like, okay, whatever. And come to find out, it's some bitch NPC in the city. I'm like, you bitch, you took my name.
Yes, and that's the kind of the surprising thing with 14 is that they don't have, you couldn't actually, in EQ2, you actually couldn't be Antonia Bale because I think the name was locked. And most of them do.
Actually, there were quite a few things that you could not be, even outside of the game.
Yeah, there
were a couple of names that they would simply block.
Like Drizzt actually was blocked, but people would spell
Drizzt was blocked.
It was like X triple.
It didn't stop, folks.
It was triple X.
I was going to say, does it actually stop them? Because can't they just spell it a different way?
That's basically what they did.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. But when we had somebody that applied to our guild, and I just sent them a no. I'm sorry, not with that name.
Yeah.
And what's funny is, okay, you can be that creative on a way to get around a block. Be that creative in your stories, okay?
And change the name to something that isn't that.
Right.
I mean, and I told the guy that because he was like, "Well, it's nothing like this person. I made up my own." They said, "Then change the name."
Yeah.
Because you're not getting in here with that name. You're not. Why are you being so picky? Because it's uncreative and it's not allowed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
And it's our guild, and we can select who we do and do not want in it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I can play my character any way I want. Yes, you can. Just not in this guild.
Not in this guild.
Right.
And I get it, because making new characters, for me, the worst part of making a new character is naming them. I will sit on that screen with the name blank for an hour.
Staring around your desk for inspiration.
I was going to say, you'll sit on that name till the screen, or till it bleeps you out because of inactivity. And you're no!
Meanwhile, Ben's already in game and he's level 10 now, and I'm still sitting there trying to name my character.
Well, that's what I like about ESO is that they provide web pages that show all the names of that race's names in game.
Yeah.
So that you can see the methodology used to name
Lord of the
characters
Rings Online does a similar
and Lord of the
thing.
Rings does that. Tor does that to some degree. So
I did not use that until I went to make an Argonian.
Yeah.
You always ended up with names, and Jazz and Ashen, you probably remember this. You always ended up with mage pet names like Jabantic.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Never ever use the random, man.
No.
It's just bad.
Random name generators. You know, the funny thing was I don't remember the game, but it was one I wasn't going to roleplay it. I was basically just got it to, I think it was like a beta or something like that. And I click random name generation. Name has already been taken. Click it again. Name has already been taken. I'm like, why the fuck am I here then? I'm just going to make something
That
up.
is funny.
That happened to me in Final Fantasy.
So, yeah. Okay, and kind of the last thing on plagiarizing and just taking stuff, and this one's a little less obvious, but something we've hit on, I don't know how many times at this point, but it still bears repeating. When someone's playing your character as if they were the MSQ hero, being that from laziness, unoriginality, whatever, it's technically that I would consider that to be plagiarism. You're just taking another idea made up and stealing it scene for scene, action for action, as if you were creating it.
Yes, that drives me crazy, and it's the quickest way to get a piece of my mind if you start that nonsense.
I mean, am I wrong in thinking of that as a form of plagiarism?
It is because the game wrote a story. You're not supposed to roleplay that story because that story is theirs. It doesn't belong to you.
Yeah, and again,
it means you can't be Wolverine. Just cut it out. Be something else.
Whoa, let's. What about Deadpool?
I mean, same deal. Well, you could be a troll. Just be your own troll, right?
Well, that's just lazy writing. See what I did there? I stole from Deadpool.
Yeah.
So anyway. But yeah, that one, and we've gone over that ad nauseum about just playing the MSQ hero. You're not the MSQ hero. You're just come up with something original on your own. Again, like Sib said, and it's a fine point, you can do what you want, technically. You can get away with it, but people around you don't have to stay
accept
around
it. And that's the thing I said over and over again in my guild when they would be like, it's my game, I can play it the way I want. Yes, you can, 100%. You won't be in this guild when you do it, however.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of, and I would say 90% of most guilds would stand down, stand tall on that policy as well. They don't.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how many of our guilds would have 2 or 3 of the exact same character over and over with a different name and maybe a race?
Right.
Yeah.
That'd be funny, though. I am the chosen one. No, I am the chosen one.
I'm Spartacus.
We actually, in Silver Circle, we had 2 guys that role-played the story quest, arguing about when I walked in, when Valkyrina, you can imagine how much fun this was. Valkyrina walked into there, and they were almost coming to blows because they were arguing over who was the better hero because they both RP'd the story quest, and were having a fight about it.
I killed Mayong first. No, I killed him first.
Yes, something along those lines. It was about Mayong. That's all I remember. And she threw them both into jail.
That was the first thing that came into my mind.
Yeah, she threw them both into jail. She said, go to jail. Bye.
So, all right. Well, wrapping up here. So how do you deal with this when you see it? Can you call them out? You move on? Ignore them?
I ignore them. I don't even interact with people like that usually. Every now and then, and we have a few in every guild that I run. We always have somebody who is copying the name of some famous person or some famous character in some famous book or movie. There's always a few, and I feel sorry for them. There's a lot of pity with somebody who can't make up their own name.
Or even use the random name generator eventually. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I get it that you liked something and you made a name similar to it. And as long as they're not too obvious about it, I don't care. If they're picking a character in a book that I've never read and I've never heard of, I'm less likely to be pissy about it than, say, Corbin Dallas.
Right.
Multipass.
Lilu.
Multipass. Yeah. If they're doing that, it's going to be really obvious. Or like Spike Lee's character. Not Spike Lee.
It's like Spike Lee has...
No, not Spike Lee.
She's talking about...
Vampire guy. Half vampire, walk the...
Blade.
Spike Blade. It was some kind of
I was thinking Spike from Buffy.
Nice.
Yes, probably.
I was like, I can... James Marsters is, I could see that.
I was thinking Spike, and then Lee kind of came out, but I meant Blade. So,
Wesley Snipes is so much cooler now than the dude, but anyway, I digress.
Yes. It's more the name I was looking for, Spike or Blade or something. It was some kind of tool. So.
Or a snipe.
Yeah. So they had most people don't know what a snipe is, especially people who aren't from the country.
Oh, I've hunted several of them.
Yep.
They're very tasty. Oddly enough, they taste like chicken.
Don't even go there.
Who knew,
anyway,
man?
I mean, having somebody that is playing a half vampire and their name is, what was it? It wasn't Blade, but it was something like Blade. It was like a
Dagger.
No, it wasn't Dagger, but it was like Honed or something like that. It was related to blades.
Right.
And I was like, really? Let me guess, you're a half vampire. How did you know? No. Rip up application, throw over my shoulder. No, go away.
Neon sign over your head?
What's the Dunpier?
Yeah, the Dampier. There was always so many. We didn't allow them in our guild for the longest time. But, that
just goes to my gripe of, dudes, there are very few people that play good vampires. Ashen did a good one, so did Tiller. And werewolves, because it's just so cheesy. Like, most of the time, they're just taking it because, that's something cool. I want to be that. And I want to put no thought into my deal. And it shows. And it's brutal. And werewolves I still hate it.
Popular right now.
Well, they are. But, if you can't do them justice, then, dude, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
I'm this puppy guy, and I love all the ladies. Get out of here, kid.
Oh, God. There are too many werewolves who play pretty puppy who chases a bone and pees on the furniture and pet me and scratch my ears. I'm seriously going to get out a blade and stab the next person that does that. It's so irritating.
To be fair, though, look at the influence they have.
True.
Yeah.
Freaking Twilight and...
Yeah, see, that's true. The same with Tufo, the like in Fallout. There was one werewolf that he befriended, Matu. It was in the future, so their names are a little jacked up. But he actually had control over it because he'd been one for so long. But he was also it was 200 years from now after an apocalypse, and he was alone because not very well liked being a werewolf, but the way Talbot and him bonded was because he had figured out the secret that was lost to the ages: brewing beer. So a guy that hadn't had a good cold beer in 200 years suddenly found his new best friend, and that was literally he's like, I know what you are, and I know you could bite my head off if you so chose, but I'm gonna hug you now. Because you've reinvented the ambrosia of the gods, given he was from Boston. So, but yeah, and it was a really kind of a neat take on a werewolf. And he's like, "You're not quite right in the head, are you? I don't care. Just have me another beer." It was a very, you can do silly stuff like that on a serious character, and he was a very serious character, but he had he figured out how to make brew. So hey, party at his house. But really, when it comes to getting all of these things, a lot of it's this. It's just going to be situational. How well do you know the person, if at all? If you don't know them at all, it's really going to be a lot like Jazz. Just rip up the application and you're good. I'm good.
Nope.
But if it was me that had come to you with for whatever reason, I had an aneurysm, and I thought this was going to be a good idea if I wasn't who I actually am.
I might be willing to not rip it up, yes. And
right, but how would you deal with that? Because
there have been people that have joined our guild with stupid names, and we look the other way because they actually aren't half bad role players, or I've just become so jaded at this point I don't give a flying fuck.
And some of them they created it not role playing, and then they went to role play, and then they were. Either they can't afford the name change or, the game doesn't.
Yeah, and there's always that. One of the best young role players that I met long, long ago was Night Fury, who she was named before there were name change tokens, and she was a raider. So when she became a role player, she still had the name Night Fury. Now, he made it work. And I had it on good value. She was an actual role player, so I overlooked the name. Yeah. There's always that. And that was back before I was, cynical.
I will also say in her defense, also back before How to Train Your Dragon was a thing, and Night Furies were, the little toothless. That was
she really.
I didn't even make that connection until just now.
She was actually pre-toothless, so I will say her defense.
That was, sadly, how long ago was that? 12, 13, 15? How old is 2005. So, yikes.
Yeah, almost 15.
A lot of years.
Yeah.
She really didn't like my character. God bless Night Fury.
To be
Yeah, I
fair,
know, it was
nobody
fun.
likes your character.
Nobody liked your character except for
I digress. There were like 3-4 people that kind of liked him. 2 of which disappeared.
He was definitely a love to hate.
Definitely.
Yeah. So,
But I mean, I believe that you can get past it. I think that there are some people who use a name that is well known and can get off with it, or because get off with it's a bad example. Who can pull it? No, that's bad too.
Pull it off.
Who can get away with it? There we go.
They can like rub it out, right?
No. Stop.
Yeah.
Okay, that was bad. Let's try this again. There are people who can have a name that is well known, and they get a break, and they prove that they are actually role players and not idiots. And I am willing to give people a chance. And we even had in our current guild, we had a gentleman who did not have a roleplay name, and we let it go because he was new to roleplay, and I assumed he would eventually wise up and make a new tune. He didn't, but he did make another character and came off with a terrible name that I then said, no, you're not doing that. Look, you need an actual roleplay name. And give him credit, he listened. And he was like, oh, so you didn't like my name? And I'm like, it wasn't a roleplay name. It's still not a roleplay name. Please change the name. And he did. And he came up with an absolutely race-correct, lore-correct name. And he's wonderful. And he actually can roleplay. And he's a lot of fun. And I gave him a chance. And my cynical heart, I can do that on occasion.
It grew 3 sizes that day.
Yes.
It totally did.
Man, I am cynical and I am just cold sometimes when the stuff crosses my eyesight and I'm just like, nope, rip, throw.
Well, just because his name was Butt Crack McCheeky doesn't mean it wasn't a roleplay name.
It wasn't that. It was I can't
Protect
even
the innocent.
Protect the innocent. I can't use his name anyway. But the point is,
Long Duck Dong, right?
It was not an appropriate. It was an appropriate name, but it was not a name that was good for roleplay. And I really felt very proud of him that he listened to me and went ahead and made a new character and is a role player and he listened and he really worked hard to show me that, because he was I think he was wounded. I thought he wasn't a role player, even though I said it wasn't a role playing name. He said, so you didn't think I was really a role player? Well, no, I didn't.
You have any idea?
But I was willing to give you a chance.
Right.
And he was like, well, I am. And I'm like, well, I know that. So just give yourself a proper name and people will believe you.
Yeah.
And he did. And he can roleplay. And it's a win. But then we have people who are like, but I like this name. It's a famous person in a movie and it's my favorite movie. Well, that's nice. But there's going to be a lot of people see your name and assume you're either a troll or an idiot.
That's great, Tom Cruise.
You either listen to me or you don't.
Oh, wait. Thomas Cruise.
Huh?
Famous name that people, name your character Thomas Cruise. It's different.
Yeah.
It's different. So,
hey man, I was gonna make a barbarian back in EQ1, barbarian shaman named McJack Danielson, and I totally could have pulled him.
Oh wow, McJack.
Yeah, but then you can just roleplay with him and be like, yeah, I know.
I was totally gonna be a brewer too.
Yeah, there you go. What do you call it?
I'm brewing some goodies. It's called my special juice.
They just call it something stupid like Jack's Brew.
Jack's Brew, there you go.
So, all right. Well, I think that about does. Anybody got anything extra you thought of while we were talking?
We've killed the topic suitably enough.
I think we've stabbed it, roasted it, and put it in the fridge. Yeah. It's going to go bad in there. We're not going to actually eat it. We just put it in there in the hopes that we'll actually think about it when we never crave it again. And we'll find it 2 weeks from now, moldy and
you can stop talking now. Really?
Throw all that penicillin on it, bro.
That's right. That's how you got penicillin. So, appreciate everybody for tuning in. Remember, go ahead and follow us over at RPMMORadio, or twitch.tv/RPMMORadio, RPMMORadio. I always skip by that so fast, they sound like I'm having a seizure. Appreciate everybody that, follows us over there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and, on behalf of my crew, I want to thank everybody. Jazz, Sib, Strafay, Yunfei, Imash, and Phoenix. And remember,
See you
everybody,
later, guys.
tune in next time when we'll go over why halflings
should stop being plagiarized and never show up in literature ever again. Next time on RPMMORadio. Play on and keep the roleplay going. The thoughts and opinions of those on RPMMORadio are just that, and should not be taken as the gospel truth, but pretty close to it. Music, as always, is provided by Husky by the Geek. Visit him at youtube.com/HuskyByTheGeek to hear all his great video game rock covers and original music.